Hi everyone, my name is Jen and I decided to do my presentation on human trafficking. I ended up using more than one article in order to get a better idea of what exactly human trafficking is, and through those articles I now have a better idea of the seriousness of the issue. It is estimated that in the United States alone, there's up to 17,000 people being trafficked, with most being women and children. What is human trafficking? In Article 3 of the Protocol to Prevent, Suppress, and Punish trafficking in persons shall mean the recruitment, transportation, transfer, harboring, or receipt of persons by means of threat or use of force or other forms of coercion, of abduction, of fraud, of deception, of the abuse of power, or of a position of vulnerability, or of the giving or receiving of payments or benefits to achieve the consent of a person having control over another person for the purpose of exploitation. Exploitation shall include, at a minimum, the exploitation of the prostitution of others or other forms of sexual exploitation, forced labor or services, slavery or practices similar to slavery, servitude, or the removal of organs. This definition not only covers human trafficking for sexual exploitation, as many think is the only form of human trafficking, but also covers trafficking of forced labor. What made me decide on this topic is due to a recent news article stating that with the large oil fields located in North Dakota that are attracting more and more people, it is also becoming a larger concern for human trafficking. I am located in Sioux Falls, and the article explained how our city is becoming a stopping point on the way to the oil fields. Normally, human trafficking starts in larger cities, such as Minneapolis or Chicago, and while moving from one large city to another, there are often stopping points in other cities. About a year ago, there was another article in our local news about a gentleman named Mohammed who was arrested on 4 counts of human trafficking. He had provided a house for the trafficking where young women who were homeless or suffering from substance abuse often found their way to his house that was known as the House of Horrors. Mohammed would supply the drugs or shelter, and in return the women would have to work for him. If they did not cooperate, then they would be drugged or beaten. Mohammed was found guilty on all 4 charges last May and was sentenced to life in prison. There are countless stories like Mohammed's that are happening all around, not just in the United States, but other countries as well. The yearly Trafficking in Persons report takes 188 countries and ranks them on their performance of fighting the different forms of human trafficking. China and Russia were ranked among the worst and have held that position for 9 years. Not only can they lose trading with the United States from the low rankings, but they can also lose funding for loans from the World Bank. The Trafficking in Persons report is one of many reports that are made annually, and although they focus mainly on what the government is doing in the country, but they also help the problem and they give a better idea of how serious the issue is becoming. What is being done to help prevent human trafficking? There is only one international legal instrument addressing human trafficking as a crime, and that is the Human Trafficking Protocol. The purpose of the Trafficking Protocol is to prevent and combat trafficking in persons, to protect and assist victims of trafficking, and to promote cooperation among states parties in order to meet these objectives. As well, punishments are getting harsher and harsher as the combat to prevent human trafficking is getting stronger. This was a hidden issue for so long that the seriousness of it is now just starting to come out. Here in South Dakota, our Senate has submitted a Bill 13, which would require those charged with sex crimes to have to register as sex offenders. As well, instead of using narcotic detectives to try and combat this, as well as narcotics, we now have a street crime officer specially trained to help prevent human trafficking. They not only do day-to-day operations, but set up stings at large events such as music festivals and the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally to help catch predators. On top of better training and new forces for law enforcement, there are also grants that have been set up with the purpose of stopping human trafficking through education on the issue. The hardest issue with trying to fight this crime is the silence that often comes from the victims. Due to language barriers and fear from their predators, they rarely come forward. Their predators oftentimes use false pretenses, such as money, shelter, or promises of a better life, to gain their victims. In conclusion, human trafficking is defined as the illegal movement of people, typically for the purposes of forced labor or commercial sexual exploitation. Human trafficking is often viewed as a modern-day slavery and needs to be stopped.